This is CBC Vancouver News.
When I came to the Learning Centre, that was the first school that I ever felt safe and respected in.
Former students and parents are protesting the closure of an alternative learning centre in Surrey, a program students say has been a lifeline for many vulnerable youth. And as fire crews from BC head to California, officials say wildfires there are far from over as the death toll reaches a new milestone. Plus,
we've provided over 40 supervised consumptions. Some of those were people who did need extra monitoring.
A grassroots movement started by a group of doctors in BC is gaining ground with more unsanctioned overdose prevention sites popping up across the country. Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. We begin in Surrey, where parents are raising concern over the closure of an alternative education program for at-risk students. As Michelle Morton reports, the South Surrey White Rock Learning Centre is one of a handful of centres in the city shutting down due to funding constraints.
Before attending South Surrey White Rock Learning Centre, Debbie Weir says mainstream school was a struggle for her child.
They basically went from low C's to B's, high B's, within one semester. And the support that they have, and they're given a voice.
She is concerned about her teen's future now that the school district says the learning center's doors will be closing at the end of this school year, bringing the total number of alternative learning centers in Surrey from 5 to 2 after the Guildford location closed this past November. In a letter to families and students, the Surrey School District says the building's lease expires in June and it requires renovations and repairs.
The renewed costs and the cost to bring the building, the minor renovations, that the wear and tear type of things, those kind of costs that need to occur every time there's a lease renewal, were just outside of our range of affordability.
In a petition, former students are calling on the province and school district to keep the learning center's doors open, calling it a life-saving resource for at-risk youth.
As a queer person, I experienced a lot of bullying and harassment in mainstream schools to the point where threats to my life were made and I was assaulted on school grounds. When I came to the Learning Centre, that was the first school that I ever felt safe and respected in.
If you're falling behind, you can catch up a lot faster. If you have a hard schedule, if you have to go to work, they're accommodating to that.
Students from the Learning Centre will be enrolled back into secondary schools in the area, where the district says flexible alternative programming will be offered.
There are many reasons why students might not want to return to school. A bad experience with a specific teacher, bullying, and not feeling included. And just with the large size and the overpopulation in our schools, many of these kids just kind of fall through.
The school board says it will work with students and their families to make sure their concerns are addressed. The Ministry of Education adds it's in communication with the school district and knows its priority is supporting students to succeed in school. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Surrey.
Emergency Preparedness Minister Harjit Sajjan says dozens of firefighters from BC and Alberta will help fight wildfires in California, and the federal government is working to prepare more resources to send over in the coming days. In a social media post today, Sajjan says 60 firefighters from the two provinces will be sent as soon as Monday. A spokeswoman for the minister confirms Canada has received and approved an official request for help. Last week, Alberta announced it will be sending up to 40 wildland firefighters with more personnel, water bombers, and contracted night vision helicopters ready to deploy. Yesterday, BC's Forest Minister said a crew from the BC Wildfire Service had landed in California to help with logistics, planning, and operations. As crews from across Canada head to California, officials there say the wildfires remain a long way from being contained. And tomorrow, extreme winds are expected to return, threatening to spread the devastation further. At least 24 people have died. Another 16 people are believed to be missing. Lindsay Duncombe takes a look at the loss so far and the fear of what's to come.
The battle from the air has been relentless, drop after drop. Crews, some working in 24-hour shifts, have made progress on the two largest fires. CAL FIRE Captain John Clinging-Smith Jr. didn't see any flames Sunday, but he's worried about the night ahead.
We're very concerned about the winds coming up. They're going to start blowing tonight into tomorrow, and if it's extended all the way out through Wednesday. People need to remember that fire can walk, run, jump, and fly.
In the charred area, a grim search as cadaver dogs look for bodies. At the roadblocks, tension. People waited for hours to get in, only to be told that won't happen yet.
We do care. We want to get you back into your homes, but we can't allow that until it is safe for you to do so.
We've been out here since 6 this morning. There's other people that have been out here since 3:30.
Shannon DeGrooms says the main structure of her home is still standing, but everything around it is gone.
We were told it's not safe, that the winds are too bad. I don't see them. I'm not saying they aren't coming. I'm just saying I see 20 officers standing around, and there's people here desperate to see what's left of their lives.
This service at Santa Monica's First Presbyterian Church was almost canceled. 3 members of the congregation lost their homes. Their sister church, a few kilometers away, is gone. But Nikki Cross wanted to be here for sanctuary.
The phrase a lot of people are using on social media is, I'm in Los Angeles and I'm safe, but I'm in LA and I'm sad. There's been, even for those of us who are safe and whose homes haven't been destroyed, there's so much devastation.
If they feel devastated, we're devastated with them. If they're hopeful about what comes next, then we're hopeful with them as well.
Along the Pacific Coast Highway, crews work to make things safe, turning off gas, cutting down trees. It is an enormous job. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, near Malibu.
Now, the scale of the Los Angeles fire disaster seems impossible, and the need to understand it is spawning conspiracy theories. But as Yvette Brand reports, fire experts say the facts explain everything.
As crews fight California's raging fires, conspiracy theories keep catching fire online.
This laser-directed energy weapon operates at the speed of light.
There are posts blaming the deadly fires on everything from laser beams to aliens.
How the f*** does that even happen?
Is it on purpose?
One Hollywood star is floating possibilities of his own.
But one begins to ponder whether or not there is a purpose in mind. What could it be, you know? I don't know. Do they want the state empty? I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie, it really makes me frustrated.
Scientists who study fire behavior say while these sorts of posts are infuriating, they also recognize people are struggling to understand these catastrophic fires.
The natural human need to want to point the blame somewhere.
One example, some wonder why there are trees still standing while everything around it is burnt to the ground.
You would see that tree still standing, but the outside bark of that tree would have completely burnt. It has a self-protective mechanism in there where that jar is going to limit how much more that tree can burn.
Conspiracy theories are often rampant during fires, says this expert.
And they generate fear and suspicion exactly when we need trust and concerted action.
I mean, as a scientist, it hurts my soul.
Fear of wildfires forced this scientist to leave Altadena, California 2 years ago. His old home burned this week.
A place can reach a tipping point like this where it just becomes essentially impossible to put the fires out.
Still, others like Mel Gibson continue to float their own ideas.
I can make all kinds of horrible theories up in my head, conspiracy theories and everything else, but it just seemed a little convenient that there was no water.
Climate scientists hope now the public puts focus on facts and the challenges exhausted firefighters face with more hot, dry winds coming. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Unsanctioned overdose prevention sites across from hospitals are becoming more common across the country. It's a grassroots movement that started on Vancouver Island, where pop-up sites have been set up since November. And as Claire Palmer reports, the service has already helped many in the community.
This is our overdose prevention site.
It's here, just steps away from the Nanaimo Hospital, that doctors have been offering harm reduction services to some of the city's most vulnerable people.
We've provided over 40 supervised consumptions. Some of those were people who did need extra monitoring to make sure that they were safe after their consumption. We've handed out numerous, I've lost count, how many sets of harm reduction supplies.
Dr. Wilder says a patient who was using the overdose prevention pop-up site died in November when the site was closed. She says it illustrates how critical it is for patients to have 24/7 access to these services at the hospital. The doctor, still visibly shaken over the death.
It's still really hard to talk about. Unfortunately, in the middle of that night, when our overdose prevention site was not available to him, he was in withdrawal or not having his pain appropriately managed, and he used in a hospital bathroom behind a locked door, and that led to him not being found in time.
Island Health says that they have experienced teams, including specialized physicians at major hospital sites, to meet the needs of patients and protect the safety of staff. But Dr. Wilder says having a designated overdose prevention site on hospital grounds also helps protect staff who are caring for patients who use drugs.
To reduce the rates of unintended exposures to illicit substance smoke from our healthcare providers inside the hospital.
Doctors for Safer Drug Policy, the organization behind the first pop-up sites in Nanaimo and Victoria, say sites like this are now being set up across the country.
Now we have over 20 sites across Canada.
She says the group will continue to advocate for more compassionate and evidence-based inclusive healthcare policies, but for now, seeing the movement grow is a step in the right direction. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
A coroner's inquest into the death of 54-year-old Florence Gerard will begin Monday in Burnaby. A jury will hear the circumstances surrounding her tragic death and how she died, weighing only about 50 pounds. Gerard was living in the home of a woman named Astrid Dahl as part of a program for people with developmental disabilities. That's where she died of starvation in 2018. Court documents say Gerard required round-the-clock care, and in 2022, Dahl was convicted of failing to provide Gerard with the necessities of life. The coroner's inquest will not assign blame, but the jury will make recommendations to prevent similar deaths in the future. A first-of-its-kind job summit for Canadians with disabilities is set to start Monday. Organizers say more than a quarter of people living in BC identify as living with a disability, and it can often be difficult for people with disabilities to find work.
There's a 14% gap in British Columbia of employment for those with and without disabilities. So just to put a hard number to it, the employment rate for those without disabilities is at 79%, but only 65% of people with disabilities who are eligible to be working are working.
The one-day virtual summit will teach job seekers with disabilities skills to secure jobs and help connect workers with businesses that want to employ people with disabilities. The aim is to better support people facing barriers and a lack of opportunities to find meaningful jobs. The City of North Vancouver is asking visitors and residents to share their ideas for the future of the central Lonsdale area through what the city is calling the Lonsdale Great Street Project.
We know that what we hear from the public and from businesses, that when we create fantastic places where people want to stay, that's where people not only have great experiences, but they also spend money.
She says the city is looking to optimize central Lonsdale economy and attract more visitors. They are currently working with a firm that will prototype changes based on input through a public survey, and the ideas are already flowing in.
Central Lonsdale is a busy area. North Van's a busy area now. The only problem I find sometimes is just parking.
I think some of the stores look like they've been here a very long time, which is great. We want to support local businesses, but I think some of them look a little bit run down.
As long as it doesn't cost me more in tax dollars, because I'm getting tired of paying those.
The city says it will release their preliminary plans in the spring based on the results of the public survey. On Wednesday, a bus carrying medical passengers from Nakusp to the Okanagan slipped off the road near Edgewood. What could have been a disaster turned into a heartwarming tale about helping out folks in need. Take a look.
I was sitting in the back, and we're riding along, and all of a sudden, you start feeling it go to the right, hey, because it's just slowly getting pulled in. I knew we were going in right away, and next thing I know, it's just the rush of snow on the side. We're tilted over.
I was sitting right behind the driver. And so I had a little bit of, quite a bit of leg room, and they had the bar so I could hang on. And so you just try to keep your balance. And then I'm sitting on this side, so I'm on the Himalaya side and up high. And the other people were down below, like Donnie was down below.
Well, at first it was panic when I got in to the office. Harvey, who was on the bus as well, he phoned about 8:40, I guess. And it was like, oh, the bus has gone off the road. And I was like, what? Is anybody hurt? And that was the first thing, right? But the saving grace was that, when I talked to Harvey on the phone, he said, no, we're fine.
It's an area where it doesn't matter where you're from, but if you're in a ditch or stop, people around here are going to stop and they're curious, want to make sure you're safe. For me, I was fortunate. Linda was going to Kelowna herself, and just worked out that I got an upgrade to ride in a Cadillac with heated seats.
The interesting thing was that there was 10 people on the bus. Yeah. By the time we got there was 7 people had already gotten rides. We only took, I think, 3 people into Vernon and to Kelowna.
With Donald Trump's tariff threat still looming, the Prime Minister and province premiers are doing what they can to ease cross-border tensions. More on that story coming up. Another cabinet minister has decided against running for the Liberal leadership. Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon's announcement came today on social media. McKinnon says the 8 weeks remaining did not give him enough time to mount a proper campaign. 3 other ministers tapped as leadership contenders have also bowed out: Dominic LeBlanc, Melanie Joly, and Anita Anand. The campaign continues against Donald Trump's tariff threat. Both the Prime Minister and Alberta's Premier were making the case against them this weekend. The CBC's Katie Simpson has the latest.
The stadium seating along Pennsylvania Avenue is nearly set up. With inauguration just over a week away, time is running out for Canada to convince Donald Trump to back down from his tariff threat.
And that if he does choose to go forward with tariffs that raise the cost of just about everything for American citizens, that on top of that, we're going to have a robust response to that.
As the Prime Minister vowed to retaliate on U.S. cable news, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith met with the President-elect at Mar-a-Lago twice in 24 hours. Writing on social media, she had a friendly and constructive conversation that she emphasized the mutual importance of the U.S.-Canadian energy relationship and highlighted how hundreds of thousands of American jobs are supported by energy exports from Alberta. Canadian businessman Kevin O'Leary was there too. He says Premier Smith argued Canada's case by comparing the trade relationship to a marriage.
And so I understand marriages, they have tiffs sometimes. People, have issues in marriage, but we're long-term married, and we know we have to work this out.
O'Leary is a supporter of a Canada-U.S. union discussing a common currency or passport around Mar-a-Lago. And while it may be controversial, he's also argued against the tariff threats.
Tariffs are a weapon of negotiation. We don't want tariffs between Canada and the United States. That's a horrific idea. That's a bad idea for both economies.
As Washington prepares for the transfer of power, Canadian concern intensifies. Fear Trump's tariff threat will soon become a reality.
Something we can't do is not to take President-elect Trump on his word, because when he says something, he usually does it.
Melanie Joly is one of several cabinet ministers expected to make visits to Washington this week in the hopes of deepening ties with influential lawmakers and advancing Canada's case against tariffs. As Canada finalizes its retaliation plan, Joly says everything's on the table. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Here in BC, Premier David Eby is also weighing in on Trump's tariff threats. He says while Ottawa is considering its own tariffs on consumer goods, it's not enough. He spoke with the CBC's Rosemary Barton earlier today.
I'm also encouraging the federal government to look at export bans in relation to critical minerals, for example, that we produce here in Canada, the United States can't get in other places. Obviously, BC produces a lot of energy for the United States, electricity as well as natural gas. These are significant economic drivers for the United States.
Here we have a live shot of White Rock Pier tonight. I'll have your full forecast after the break.
This is Vancouver is a new CBC podcast where we explore the issues, the stories, and the people that make this place home. Listen to This is Vancouver wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
The CBC concert series Road to the Junos is in Vancouver. The 5-night series kicks off January 26th at the Pearl. Tickets at cbc.ca/Junos. And on February 4th, CBC's Michelle Elliott moderates the alumni UBC webinar Med Talks. Join the conversation to enhance your understanding of compassionate and comprehensive care. Register at alumni.ubc.ca.
All right, let's take a look at the weather for the week ahead, starting with a quick peek at the current temperatures around the province tonight. -1 in Snowy and Fort St. John overnight, -5 in Kamloops, -2 in Kelowna, and on the island, 1 in both Tofino and Victoria. Heading into tomorrow, Snowy and Dees Lake with a -2, a mix of sun and clouds for both Prince George and Fort St. John. In Kamloops, a high of 1 for tomorrow and a mix of sun and clouds. And on the island, a bit warmer with a 5 in Victoria and 7 in Tofino. Here in Metro Vancouver, pretty similar temperatures throughout the entire week and conditions. Monday, we're going to see a high of about 4 with a mix of sun and clouds, and that looks to be continuing for the week ahead. That is your late news for this Sunday, January 12th. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Hope you have a great week.